Hello everyone, and welcome to our latest Magento end-of-life webinar, Migrating to the Me Economy, sponsored by Foretel, Brightpearl, and dotdigital. Don't forget to submit questions for the Q&A throughout the webinar. To quickly recap the series that we've been doing on Magento end-of-life, there's a lot of risks that come with not migrating. Firstly, after Magento's 1 support ends, it can leave your site in a dangerous position. There will be no more security updates coming, and most of the developers who used to work on Magento 1 extension have moved forward to focusing on Magento 2. These can cause, breaks in extensions that, will be hard to fix, along with a series of other issues with your site. However, migrating to Magento 2 can allow you to have higher performance, prevent all of these breakages, and gives you a chance to redesign your site and add some new technology, which we'll get into soon. Today, for our speakers, we have Oliver Sostinski of Redstage, Jason Foretel, Sarah of Brightpearl, and Tink Taylor, founder and president of dotdigital. Redstage and Magento have been working together to help merchants create powerful customer experiences online. Redstage was the first to offer Magento support, and we have more than 10 years of experience working on more than 700 Magento sites across the globe. We thought this issue was important because of all of the Magento clients out there who might not know about end of life and the issues that it could cause your site. So we've gathered these experts together here today to discuss in further detail.
Thanks, Don. Great, and thanks to Redstage for hosting this webinar. We're honored to be participating with our fellow partners in the Redstage ecosystem. Very eager to hear from both dotdigital and Brightpearl after us. So let me introduce Foretel. Foretel is a predictive analytics and sales enablement platform. We drive smarter customer experience for business to consumer and business to business companies and allow them to engage customers while always being focused on long-term value, lifetime value, and revenue through personalization. With that in mind, I'm here to share our perspective on personalization. It's something we spend a lot of time thinking about. There are really two aspects that we focus on. The first is around dynamically merchandising a website. And this is an example of product recommendations, content recommendations, and personalized search. And then we also have a component that we call intelligent collaboration, which is really also labeled as sales enablement or clienteling. So as we consider the end of life of Magento 1, which is our thesis for this webinar, may it rest in peace, platform migration is really a perfect opportunity to reconsider your personalization strategy. So the focus is really around something we call the Me economy. And in considering your personalization strategy, you probably already recognize that this is reflective of modern commerce. The graphic here effectively showing that the customer is in the center of every interaction, and then we have the first concentric circle around it, which effectively is labeled here as product, could also be labeled as content, but it really is reflective of anything that the consumer is looking to consume along their journey. And then the outer circle is reflective of any of the channels or mediums by which they're ready to consume it. So whereas retailers in the past were really able to simply execute just knowing that their product was well made and well merchandised, and simply push it out through conventional advertising means. Today, because of the proliferation of technology, shoppers really choose to interact across many channels, many different mediums, and at many different times. All of this has to be cared for. The goal is effectively ensuring a seamless experience for this customer, and thus products must be available and accessible wherever and whenever all customers are looking for them. And this is a shift that is obviously huge. Offered a couple of stats here that are reflective that there's a large percentage of the population that have really taken a stand that personalization is a priority in their customer journey. It's an opportunity that continues to grow and is a great opportunity for companies that execute well in personalization to really own new market share. And it doesn't exist in any one specific vertical. You see it really anywhere that consumers go. It impacts nearly every industry. So we know this through not only seeing the shift in our own customer base, but obviously by studying some of the largest brands in the world that we think are doing personalization well. Certainly, you guys recognize a few of these brands, probably have relationships with them yourself. And the question is, what's the common thread with all of them? The answer that we think really speaks to this shift lies in what we call the 3 R's. And these are very simply the onus on the merchant to make sure that they recognize the customer right up front and leverage all the data that they can collect around them. With that data, they're able to make the best recommendations along the way and make sure that all the products and content are clearly in support of their buying journey. And then lastly, they need to always be reminding the customer of the relationship that they have with the brand, where they left off in their journey, what they can do next, and always reinforcing the value that they're ready to offer, even when that customer is jumping channels, even when that customer comes in at different and disjointed times. So we can see a few examples of this, again, referencing the large brands we mentioned earlier. In this instance, and I'm sure many of you use Amazon, you see the way they've inserted the customer's name at the top. In the top left, you see a specific address. All of these are efforts to make sure the customer knows that they're being recognized as an individual. Or in the instance of Netflix and any of the other viewing services, again, use of the first name and then offering content that is clearly influenced by what's been viewed previously and what the viewer has shown an affinity for. And then Nordstrom, who is obviously a blue chip in personalization, always reinforcing with the customer that they recognize them, and then reminding them that, hey, there are more looks for you. There's another journey to be taken. Always ready and trying to inspire that customer as to what's next for them in a personalized interaction. So again, a few more stats that just help to further consider what the role of personalization might be in your migration plan. Really, the net out for these stats is very simple. It's that personalization works. Shoppers respond by staying with the brands who execute this well. So it really ends up with a very simple recipe that as you're capturing and organizing data around the customer, both behavioral and transactional, and deploying the value of the analytics and recommendations that come from that data, you're empowering both your teams as well as your technology to personalize an experience for every customer in every journey, which gives you a more engaged shopper and constantly drives that lifetime value and overall revenue. So this is why we really believe that when you're considering the platform migration, moving off of M1, it's a perfect time to reconsider that personalization strategy. So that's all for our time today. I believe next up is Tink Taylor, founder and president of dotdigital. Tink, feel free to take it away.
Hi. So can everyone hear me? Yeah, as you say, thanks up, Jason. As you say, I'm Tink Taylor, the founder and president of dotdigital, the engagement cloud, a marketing automation platform. As you were saying there, you were talking about the me economy, millennials and the Generation Z folks, and now I want to speak about how we specifically personalize messages to them. Today I'm going to take you through personalized experience, data-driven insights, and advanced personalization. And what do we mean by personalization? Well, put simply, it's the ability to communicate with customers on a one-to-one level. This will ultimately help you empower your messages and drive engagement, which lifts your return on investment. Now, I've taken a quote here from Tom McGee of Forbes, and in short, he says, millennials want to feel valued in all channels, and this ultimately creates loyalty. Retailers therefore need to examine what they're doing with customer data and ensuring they deliver a more personalized experience. Now, millennials are more receptive to personalization techniques. Salesforce actually noted in their State of the Connected Consumer report that 63% of millennial consumers and 58% of Gen X consumers are willing to share data with companies in exchange for personalized offers and discounts. They're much less guarded about personal information compared to prior generations. They've come to terms with this in the digital age. They're much more in tune with the risk around personal data, and they understand the value exchange of getting better experiences in return for giving up some personal information. And by the way, make sure you keep that secure. The percentage that are doing this is higher than ever. This is great news for us marketers, since the data that they share is the backbone of any personalization strategy. It opens up many avenues for creating relevant and therefore highly converting experiences for consumers. Personalization strategies can go from relatively simple campaigns, for example, segmenting emails by industry, inserting someone's first name into the text, to more sophisticated on-site personalization campaigns, to very complex multi-device operations. 51% of consumers expect that by the year 2020, companies will actually anticipate their needs and make relevant suggestions before they actually make contact. So what can you do to personalize these experiences? Well, we can use things like product recommendations. These help us create hyper-personalized experience using customer data, things such as orders and product reviews, and these help us generate unique recommendations. We can use Google Ads and make sure you recapture abandoned browsers and then use them with intelligent retargeting adverts. Keep the content relevant here and use data to ensure that ads don't include content that will turn customers off. I think we've all seen an advert for a product with a discount for something that they previously purchased. Now, you can also use Facebook audiences. You can give your contacts here a nudge with a friendly and engaging advert on social media. Consider the timing here and the number of impressions to ensure that customers feel like they're getting great value from these. And then we can use push notifications. Catch customers on the go and deliver meaningful engagement. Push notifications are actually a great way of building loyalty and preventing churn, especially when you use data such as location to personalize that experience. You can use customer data. You can deliver more personal messages with contact level data. For example, a very basic example would be to include the first name in the subject line to differentiate your emails from others in the inbox. Use dynamic content. Keep your messages hyper relevant. Doing so, set up variations based on contact data so your contact and calls to action are adaptable and different to every single audience and hopefully every single recipient. Use preference centers. Capture more customer data with preference centers always. You can then use that data to segment contacts so that all of your messages go to the right audience. And then we use behaviors to keep your audience switched on and using contextual-based messaging. Use things like triggers on past orders, past web activity to surface relevant content across all of your channels. So how can you take that to the next level? Well, first of all, the first thing to do is bridge the gap with what we call connectors, i.e. integrate all of your data sources. For example, your in-store technology. This will harness the value of your customer insight and deliver smarter messages that impact your bottom line. You can deliver an unparalleled experience by using external dynamic content in your messages to surface products unique to that individual, such as the items that are abandoned while shopping or browsing. Perhaps you can also integrate with technologies like Move by Link. These guys actually allow you to create hyper-personalized content on a one-to-one basis very simply by using something called Liquid Script. Now, if you have a lot of data, and you will get a lot of data if you're doing this, it's great news for personalization. It's not a problem at all, but try using things like Google BigQuery. This will enable you to crunch through huge amounts of data in a very short period of time. This will enable you to find the right segmentation and the right personalization, helping you to deliver those one-to-one messages. As you can see in our world here, we've got a couple of slides. Personalization is just one part of the puzzle, but it's a very important part. But what you need to do fundamentally is connect, and that's put all of your data to work so you can focus on the bigger picture. That enables you to empower yourself. You're powering up your marketing by using tools that have made these tasks much easier. Therefore, you can communicate, create meaningful experiences that engage your customers in whatever channel that they're actually in. Sorry, next slide. Ultimately, what we would like to see our customers doing is to send out communications that really engage your customers so you acquire smarter, convert faster, and deliver bigger and better than before. That's it for me. As I said, I'm Tim Taylor, I'm founder and president of dotdigital. Thanks for your time. And now I get to hand over to Sarah from Brightpearl.
Thanks, Tink. So To go along with this whole idea of the quote me economy, it's definitely worth chatting about the direct to consumer movement. This is a real growing trend that's impacting a number of different businesses. In fact, D2C is considered to be the fastest growing area of e-commerce, with companies seeing exponential growth in their annual revenue built on this model. Actually, 80% of decision makers believe it's the future of retail, and nearly 90% of brands have plans to launch D2C in their own business. And those plans really make a lot of sense when you see all of the different benefits of D2C, like the ability to control the entire end-to-end journey that a consumer experiences while interacting with a brand, so that you can truly cater to the me economy. And this means owning every single part of the relationship with the buyer, from pre-purchase to point of purchase and post-purchase phases, which ultimately equal more profit and revenue for you. So that's always good. And as a result, your brand starts to really form the relationship with its consumers instead of giving that opportunity to a wholesaler, which consumers really notice and actually appreciate. And most importantly, you'll have true margin ownership by cutting out that middleman. But with the rush of your this opportunity also comes risk. And so what we found is that millennial shoppers in particular are sensitive to the idea of loyalty. And Brightpearl recently surveyed 4,000 online shoppers in the US and the UK to really explore this subject of how millennials are loyal to brands in the digital age. And we found that millennials are actually really focused on this rush versus risk and the ample opportunity that if you do it wrong, it can have some pretty significant consequences. In fact, almost 8 out of 10 brands say if they don't find a way to manage the D2C movement effectively, it will have serious implications on their entire brand and its reputation. And consumers really echo that statement, with 70% saying that they'll never buy from a brand again if they have a poor experience. And we found that millennials are the ones who are really redefining just the purchasing behavior with their actual buying power. And they are placing more and more demands on brands and demonstrating just how quickly they will abandon a brand if they don't meet their expectations. In our study, 40% of that millennial age group, so 25 to 34-year-old shoppers, told us that they are looking for an improved experience when they're shopping online. Their expectations are not being met and they're looking for something better. 43% of that same group are actually less loyal to brands than they were a year ago. Let's think about where that momentum will carry us year over year. And this means you've got to capitalize on ways to really meet that end-to-end customer expectation, right? This whole idea of like a me economy, by continuously innovating how you can be better. And the best way to make those improvements is by optimizing your operations, especially after the buy button, so that you can eliminate all of the potential headaches that drive millennials and really any shopper crazy. So what does this mean? How do you create loyalty when you're dealing with an economy that's so focused on the me aspect? As retailers, you're responsible for exceeding expectations, but also remaining profitable. So how do you do that in the most efficient way possible? How can you cut down on the complexity and make it as effortless as possible? And what we found is that there's 3 main areas that this truly impacts. The first is order fulfillment. Almost 60% of shoppers actually said that they have experienced goods ordered never arriving. That's 6 out of 10 consumers. So what sort of systems do you have in place currently that help to really eliminate the risks of that potential poor customer experience, things like out of stocks or late deliveries? And corresponding with that is also the idea of product returns and how to make that process as streamlined and easy to manage as possible, especially when we know that returns are such an inevitable beast of what you guys do every single day. And the numbers don't lie. 70% of shoppers said if they had a poor returns experience, they will never shop at your brand again. So ask yourself, how are you offering hassle-free returns? And that's hassle-free for both your staff as well as your customers, to satisfy that customer. So even though they're returning one of your products, they want to shop with you again because it's easy to do it, while also ensuring that your staff is satisfied, that they're able to get items back into rotation faster. And all of this ties back to supporting your customer after the sale with the best customer service. In our study, we saw that 20% of shoppers said bad customer service was the #1 reason they had a bad experience. So to help eliminate that worry, have a system in place that eliminates your bottlenecks and really makes your team more efficient, and so that you can create the loyalty you need to be successful and really grow your business. Now, what Brightpearl does is offer software that has specific functionality to address each of these 3 key areas while also really automating them as much as possible. So we talked about how important this is, but how do you put your routine processes on as much autopilot as possible so that you can manage your business by exception and spend time on things that they really need versus the stuff that just takes up a lot of time. So in summary, I think the movement to direct to consumer has huge implications, both rewarding and risky for your business. But at the end of the day, what we need to remember is that D2C is more than just a channel. Whether you're examining or redefining the strategy, you have to think about the feeling you want to create for your consumers and what makes them feel special. How do you make them feel like they are the most important part of what you do? And then support that feeling from the start of their experience in the buying journey to the very end with the right technology that helps this happen as efficiently as possible. And you also have to listen to your customers, follow the example that they set when it comes to their own loyalty, sell where they buy, exceed their expectations, do what they demand. If you can figure this out, there is a huge opportunity to change the entire future of your business. So you've heard me referencing a bunch of different stats today. If you're interested in learning more about those studies or just these topics in general around direct-to-consumer and working with millennials, who, as we've seen, are sort of the most fickle consumer base, but also the largest, definitely check out our reports. If you're interested in learning more about what Brightpearl can do around each of these areas, reach out, please, and let us know. That's it from me. I will hand it back over to you, Don. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Sarah. And for everybody, we're getting to the Q&A, but I just want to jump in here and mention that we do have a free assessment. For anyone joining this webinar, it's going to go through, your site, and we're going to show you exactly the areas where we think, you can optimize. Here's kind of a brief idea of what that looks like. So we get the overall health of your entire purchase funnel. We're going to show you, what product content you could be updating and other opportunities for, to keep in mind for your migration. All right, and now we're going to the Q&A. So let's see what kind of questions came in. Everyone who's attending, don't forget to send in some questions. You can do that on the GoToWebinar bar. This should be on the right side of your screen. It looks like we have one for Fortel. So let's see. Personalization seems to work for B2C, but how can B2B businesses apply personalization techniques?
Yeah, thanks, Don. Certainly we find that B2B is somewhat always looking to key off of best practices in B2C. So the role of personalization, we think, is equally as important in B2B. It's maybe a little different in that what we see is typically in B2C, you're talking more about shoppers who are looking to be inspired along their journey, versus in B2B, you're really talking about buyers who are specifically looking for efficiency. They want a large catalog, for instance, to be quickly parsed for relevance to what's applicable to them. And then they want to be somewhat inspired within the realms of that, but always cross-referenced to specs and recs of their needs. So the ability to go in and personalize against a buyer's profile and always be referencing what's applicable versus and ruling out or suppressing what's not, we think is just as important as it is to reduce friction within the B2C buyer's journey.
Yeah, I think I'll just add to that, just to highlight what Jason's saying there. I think most buyers in the B2B world these days really want a buying experience that they've become very attuned to in their personal life, so in the B2C space. So, you know, from a dotdigital point of view, you know, sending out stuff that is relevant based on what they've looked at, what they previously purchased, the frequency of their purchase, and what have you. It's all about, you know, getting the right message to the right person at the right time. And nowadays as well, the expectation is also the full file, which is the right channel. So if they're communicating with you through Facebook Messenger rather than email or SMS or whatever, you know, some sort of social messaging, then that's how they would like to be dealt with.
And this, I think this kind of ties into another question that's for dotdigital. But someone said that they find younger customers spend less time in their store. What are some, you know, on-site tips other than product recommendations to capture their attention before they leave?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, again, it goes back to what I was saying with the 4 Rs, you know, right message, right time, right person, right channel. Now, if you can establish a pattern for a user, you know, when they're likely to go into a store, et cetera, you know, perhaps they've you know, provided an email address at a previous store when they've made a purchase, it might be for an e-receipt and that type of thing. If you then monitor what their browsing behavior is, you know, what they're putting into their cart, what they might be removing from their cart, everything is about sending relevant information. So you can send information on products that they potentially might purchase. But another really good value add is actually sending post-purchase information, asking for things like reviews, because that will help you with future sales of other people, but actually to sort of see how they're getting on with the product, and then send information as well that might be helpful in the use of that product. So I think it's all about, it's not so much just sort of send an email, expect a purchase there and then, whether they're in store or online. It's all about building that relationship between you and the consumer by continually adding value and doing it in the right time and the right channel that keeps that consumer happy.
We've got another one for Brightpearl. So Sarah, maybe you can tell us, how do you know when you're ready to transition to DTC?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it really comes down to knowing your business. So there's so many different pieces of what you do that you can sort of make assumptions about. But before you make a transition into this model, it is so critical to really understand your margin and analyze whether or not the risk that we talked about is actually worth the reward. Then once you feel good around that, making that jump, it's about automating as much as you can, as much as possible, from very beginning with like your order fulfillment to returns if they're not satisfied with their product, to customer service, and making sure that you are continuing to analyze the growth of your business, what it's experiencing, so that you can then adjust when it makes the most sense. But the worst thing you can do is transition into this model, potentially damage relationships with your wholesalers, and not really be the right time to either make that transition or it just not being beneficial for you. So definitely look at your margin and understand if the rewards are worth the actual risk.
Gotcha. There's another one for you. What part of the DTC aspect does Brightpearl help automate? And how can I ensure that this kind of thing goes as easy as possible?
Yeah, we are all about automating as much as possible. And really, this sort of coined term that we use is this managing by exception. So automate as many of the repeatable tasks that you can when it comes to orders, and then catch the exceptions so that you can then give them the attention that they need. So whether that's in your workflows for fulfilling orders, or maybe you're allocating or fulfilling from multiple warehouses and you want to be able to route them to the right place at the right time, or you're drop shipping to save time on your order processing. All of that is connected. And if there's a way for us to automate those processes as much as possible, then you're really able to spend more time on the stuff that really like requires your brain, the things that nobody can do. So let's use software and those types of solutions to do the more monotonous tasks, so that then you're able to use really the value that you offer your business to truly grow it in the direction that it needs to go.
I think I'll just tag on the end there as well, because I can't stress, automation plays a big part in what we do at dotdigital. But Sarah was saying there, the automating of those tasks is so important. I think most retailers and marketers that we know and come to meet, when we first speak to them, they're spending a good 80 or 90% of the time doing, not thinking, not analyzing, not looking at the results they're getting and analyzing that and putting that back into, maybe there's a marketing strategy or their customer service or delivery strategy, because they're too busy doing the day-to-day. So a little bit of time and effort, or even getting in some extra help to put those automations in place, then buys you back so much time to be focused on the task within the business that really moves the needle in terms of success.
We have one for Oliver from Redstage. What are the most common upgrades merchants get when migrating to Magento 2 that you've seen?
Let's see. I think ERP integrations is a big one. Better, closer integrations with marketing platforms such as dotdigital is another. Another recent trend we're seeing is a lot of merchants using product information management systems to get better control over their catalog. But really the answer for any individual merchant is going to depend on looking at all of your processes and looking for those processes that are very manual, maybe something that you've been doing for years and just kind of got used to. I was working with a client recently who used the term swivel chair API for the way that they were transferring orders back and forth between their e-commerce site and their order processing software, because basically somebody working at that merchant has to copy the orders out of the e-commerce platform onto a piece of paper, take them over to another desk, and enter them into an OMS. So it's looking for those manual processes that you're just kind of used to doing, and identifying what integration needs to be done to figure out which ones matter to you.
I'll add a bit to that too, just on the Brightpearl side. I think beyond like your e-commerce aspect and the order aspect, it also is worth thinking about. We use that swivel chair analogy a lot between other systems. So what about your accounting and your CRM, all these different types of things that relate back to your inventory? If we can connect them in as many ways as possible, automate the tasks that are associated to each of them, then to reiterate the point that we've made before, you're able to really use your energy and your time in an area that's going to move the needle, as Tink stated, and also let you do the stuff that's like more fun. Like nobody wants to be spending all this time doing the menial tasks. If we can get a computer to do that, let's do that part. So then you're able to use the more creative side of what you do to actually make a true impact.
Yeah, Sarah, that's a great point. From Fortel's perspective, we absolutely attack this by trying to garner all the data available that comes out of all of these disparate systems, just as you guys recognize, and then really let the machine learning layer go in and do the thinking for you in a way that creates a proactive strategy for anticipating what customers are going to want and when they're going to want it. And that sort of gets it out of that reactionary mode, which can oftentimes gobble up so much time. When you get proactive like that, then it's just everything becomes so much more efficient. And with the efficiency comes added time to really focus on the extra mile, just as you're pointing out. Love that approach.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody who came and joined us for this webinar today. As I said, you can sign up for your free migration assessment at the link below, redstage.com/M1EOL. And we also have a pretty exciting offer where some current Magento 1 merchants will be able to move to Magento 2 and get 6 months of Magento 2 absolutely free. So make sure that you check out our site for that information, and if you have any other questions, you can submit them as well, and we're happy to answer them. Thank you all for your time today, and we'll see you soon.